see those iconic glasses again, man.
You sure can hear me, right? You sure can hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay, yeah.
Can you hear me all right? Am I loud enough?
Okay. Yeah, I can hear.
Yeah,
Sorry, I
cool.
just had to make sure. Yeah. How are you, man? How's life? How's tricks?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm coming up in the world. I've stopped using this little guy and I've upgraded to this guy.
Oh, yeah, baby. Yeah.
Things are looking up, man.
Yeah, the extra. What's I gonna say? The additional microphone use is definitely needed.
Yeah.
Definitely,
man.
I remember. I don't know who it was, but some content creator, I forgot who it was. They said, you can have pretty shitty video. You can get away with shitty video, but you can't get away with shitty audio.
Yeah.
So just make sure your audio is all right and you'll be best. So yeah, here we are.
The audio used to be the best part about a podcast because I was able to do it in person, and like I had these. It's just like Behringer mics, man. But like when I was at college, I studied sound production and stuff, so I'm quite good at doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I'd imagine so.
But it's just a pain in the arse when I'm sitting doing a webcam podcast to set up like an interface and all that kind of stuff. So I just bought a USB mic.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's cool. So fucking things are going good for you, man.
Things are going good. Yeah. You know,
with the channel and stuff.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. But I don't really. What's the thing called them? I don't really put too much checking that out. I just do it because I'm bored. Nothing else to do, man. We've been locked indoors for a year, and I've just basically been, trying to make sure that I don't jump out my window. So the best thing to do is to just talk shit about stuff that you have no knowledge of. It's the best way to do it.
If you're filming yourself constantly, you're also increasing the risk of filming yourself jumping out a window.
Of course, exactly. Yeah. And I don't want anyone. To like come across that tragic story on there. Oh yeah, that guy I saw the other day. Shit, oh no.
It's so funny. Like if the video just started with you like really upbeat. Like, the end of the video is just talking about Whitney Cummings and then just fucking
exactly like the last known footage of me is me ranting about some 40-year-old woman in LA. Like,
I just watched that Whitney Cummings video.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting.
Good old Whitney.
I really need to subscribe to Tim Dillon's Patreon, man. Like
it's awesome, man.
He's my favourite podcaster just now, and I probably should throw some sort of money his way.
I think for me, it's him and for stuff that I always listen to. Always him, Bill Burr, Joey Diaz. That always don't miss an episode. Come Town, obviously, I love. And that's it. But those are the ones I can't miss an episode of. They're really good. But Tim Dillon is sort of like the new gen Bill Burr in that respect. Do you know what I mean? They've got the similar kind of energy. I'm actually interested to see if they ever actually do a show together. It'll be interesting to see how that, because I know when Bill Burr did something with when he sat down with Theo Vaughn, that didn't go too well. Bill didn't really vibe with his comedy. He didn't really get it.
It's funny, man, because like all of those people you would expect that they would actually work really well together.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan and Bill Burr, I think sometimes like kind of clash. There's some awkward moments when you're watching them talk, man.
Yeah. So,
I think because they're like both kind of, with lack of a better phrase, like alpha type guys. You know what I mean? Like, but in different ways.
Exactly.
Like Joe's kind of physically, and Bill's kind of more temperamentally.
Exactly. No. You know what I mean? That's true. That's definitely true. I think that doesn't. I think sometimes, especially when it's people within their same sort of like area. I think that's why usually sometimes the best podcasts are the ones where the host has nothing to do with what the guest is into or like in. But when it's like two people within the same sort of field at the same level, inadvertently there's a weird little cock measuring contest that goes on. I don't know if it's on purpose, but it just happens. It is what it is, which is why usually, like, if you have like a really studious journalist that sits down and interviews a football player, those are usually the best interviews. But when it's someone that's like within the same lane, or maybe it's like it's an older football player who didn't get the benefit of playing nowadays, and he's a bit disgruntled. It's always a really odd interview. I don't know why it happens like that.
That's funny, actually. Like I don't know if you watched it, but the Joe Rogan interview with Dave Chappelle, like there's some moments in that as well that's along the lines of what you're saying. Because like Joe Rogan will go off and rants about like when he's trying to educate someone in a particular field, and you can see that Dave Chappelle knows exactly what he's talking about. And there's like a kind of, why are you telling me this information?
And he just doesn't give a shit. Exactly. Yeah. It's like he just doesn't care. Yeah. I felt that energy too. It's like Joe was like, thought he was talking to like some young whippersnapper, you know. It's like I don't care. You know what I mean? Like
it's funny, man. So lots of shit's happened in that. I can't even remember a lot of the stuff we spoke about last time. Obviously, I discovered your channel through. I think it was the Chris Delia story. Was one of the first things that I seen.
Yeah.
But a lot of stuff's happened in that time, man. Like I think Tim Dillon, and this is probably a weird. I know Tim Dillon was kind of blowing up before Chris Delia, but I think Chris Delia, like going away for a while, was Tim Dillon's window into being like becoming so mainstream, if that makes sense. Because I know he's quite an alternative comedian, but he's like, seems like everyone, for me anyway, I stopped watching Chris Delia because he wasn't around to do podcasting, and I was like,
yeah.
I watched, it's just a guy sitting having a rant, and he kind of took that.
That's a good point, because it is unfortunate for him, because I did feel like towards just before he got the allegations kind of, or when you know, public and stuff, it felt like his podcast was going on a bit of an ebb and wave. Maybe it was because he was filming stuff and he was busy doing Hollywood stuff, but it was starting to pick up again. Like it was starting to get more fun, and you realize, okay, like this guy's funny in his own way, sort of like in a Fear of One thing. He's not necessarily like, you know, jokey like a Dave Chappelle thing, or bits like or lines like a flipping, what's his name, Auntie Jess or Nick or whatever. He's not like that, but he's got his own lane. Then the allegations here, it just kind of crumbled. So maybe, in terms of that ranting, sort of like taking a piss style, Tim Dillon has kind of stepped in, which is really tragic, but that's just entertainment, isn't it? The moment you take your foot off the pedal, someone else.
I think Tim Dillon would probably find that quite funny as well, man.
Yeah, he would, 100%, because, you know, there's not a lot of teenage girls that are going to be screaming at a Tim Dillon show, really.
That's a good point, man. Weirdly, I think he's like, Chris D'Elia's managed like a comeback quite well. Probably like more successful than even like Brian Callen or Louis C.K. or whatever.
Yeah, no, man. Like maybe Wells, and like he's got a podcast and he can, because obviously he's not doing stand up. I kind of get the feeling like he's probably a little bit ashamed of going outside, which is odd. You know, but I get it, you know, because it's like the problem that he has, unlike Louis C.K., is that everyone saw him as like a nice guy, and then when that story comes out, it makes it look like everything about you was fake. Do you know what I mean? That's the issue he has. Whereas Louis C.K. has always been a bit of a degenerate. So when you heard about the story of him, you know, wanking into bushes and stuff, it didn't surprise you. It was like, oh, okay, cool. That's kind of on brand, you know, because he's a bit of a his comedy's quite dark. He gets into some really weird shit when he's on the stage. But with Chris, maybe it was so like incongruent to who he was. Now to step back out on stage and be like the silly, goofy guy, it doesn't. Everyone's like, but we know what you get up to in your DMs. So he might be okay in that way, but I don't know. Whenever I look at him, I always see whenever I look in his eyes, I always say, because whenever you go on I always say about people on Instagram, like whenever someone takes too many selfies, usually like a cry for help. Whenever he goes on these little silly, like little things on his podcast, I always feel like he's like, it's sad to say, but he's like one bad podcast away from like Chris Benoit, his family, man. He looks like he's really in a bad place, look wise. I don't know.
It seems, definitely. Like, watch the last episode of his podcast before he got cancelled, and like he's aged. But then, I feel like I've aged like 10 years since the lockdown started.
No, but he's really aged. He's really aged, man. He looks, and again, I don't blame the guy. I can't imagine what it must be like to be like on the cusp of being an action movie star and then have it all pulled from underneath you in such a public way as it was before. Because again, it's one thing being accused of something, cool, but when everyone sees that you're flipping messages and all this stuff, it's just a whole level of privacy and thing that you know, I can understand it, but. Hey.
But I think one thing that's kind of admirable about the way that he's managed coming back is that, probably just through the nature of how it's happened, because the industry's rejected him now, is that he's had to figure out a way where he's in control of the whole thing. See that like, and maybe we spoke about that the last time, but I really think that that's the future, is being able to like have your own little industry. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no. Like I've always said, I don't I'm not really a fan of cancel culture. Never have been. I think it's ineffective, and doesn't do what it's meant to do. I think there's no real road for redemption. People get cancelled. It's sort of like they want you to get cancelled and lose your job forever. It's like, fair enough, I have to take a bit of a time out, but does that mean I can't ever do my thing that I want to do, like the thing that I've worked my entire life to do? Especially stuff like stand up. Like stand up, I would just describe it similar to like making it in music. There's no one way to make it. Like you could take 1 year, I could take 7 years. There's no clear path. So to have your whole career taken away from you because of a mistake or something that you did that people don't like, I don't agree with it. But I'm also very aware that most people should put themselves in a position where you don't need the machine, you don't need the industry, because if you ever do get caught out where you say something untoward, you do put something bad out, whatever, you don't want them to have the ability to just press pause or stop on your career. That's what you don't want. You want to always be able to go on. Like, for instance, I look at Morrissey as a good example. Morrissey's not the most politically correct person in the world, but because he's built up such a loyal fan base, no matter what his crazy shit he says about the Queen or whatever, he can still go on tour. People are still going to turn up and go and see his show. So the power is always in the fans. The fans decide if you have a career or not. I don't like this idea of like the industry telling you can't have a career. Let the fans think, okay, I don't like you anymore and not go to your shows, but let not be the industry. That's the only thing I don't like.
Yeah, it's weird, man. I don't understand how there's not like something contractually that says unless there's like absolute evidence, you can't fire me from this film or you can't fire me from this job. Or
it's nonsense.
It's weird, man. Like I understand maybe like a suspension till, because that would happen, I assume, with like a normal job. You'd be suspended till they investigated.
Of course. And it's weird because the people who they're bowing down to, then, like, for instance, everyone has, like, I would imagine most people that were angry or canceling, there's definitely a portion of people who are like the kind of moral crusaders who are like, I don't like what Chris did, underage kids, blah, blah, blah. Cool. But the majority of the people who are trying to cancel him aren't even his fans anyway. So it's not as if you put him in that, if you keep him in that Army of the Dead movie, it's not as if they're not going to not turn up for the movie. They were never going to watch it. Yeah. So you're better off just saying like, hey, we've addressed the situation. We've sat him down. We've had an internal discussion. He's not going to appear in any of the promotional posters or do any of the press stuff, but he's going to be in a movie still. Cool. It doesn't necessarily change anything, but I guess most of these people, it's mostly to do with sponsors and stuff. Like they don't want to lose money that way, because, you know, if you make a movie like Army of the Dead and you have to spend, let's say, 10 million on it, and then you've got 5 million coming in from a sponsor and it doesn't make 10 million, you need that 5 million that's coming in, or your movie goes in the red. Do you know what I mean? So that's probably why. Yeah.
If I think for like the sponsors and stuff, it's kind of like death by association. Like people just being brought to the attention of anybody in a negative way is bad for the brand. Whatever it is, man. It's strange, man. Like I was thinking earlier, a lot of these guys that like got cancelled, like see Brian Callen and like more recently Tony Hinchcliffe and stuff, like they're not that famous. Like really, they're not that famous, and I don't understand why they respond. They personally responded the way that they did. Maybe it's just because it's like such a profound accusation, but like the people that liked them just stuck around anyway. You know what I mean? Other than something that happened maybe with it, like for them with the fighter and the kid, that was again the sponsor thing, but the fans are just there. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I don't get it. Like, which is why I love Bill Burr's approach. He just ignores it. I just don't understand why he just don't. Unless there are some occasions where you're going to need to say something, but for instance, that Bill Burr thing, that was what? That was I think the Grammys pre-show, when he said, you know, he did those kind of quote unquote unsavory jokes, or, you know, unpolitically correct jokes. He just ignored the backlash and it went away.
Yeah,
because like, what are they really gonna do? They're gonna what? Take him away from a TV? Not really. What do you say that's gonna get him fired from a TV show? Not really anything. All they want.
And Bill Burr's thing is that you're getting pissed off about it.
Exactly.
Like that's what I like about Tim Dillon. Like his whole audience is aware that like if he, like those lesbians that he had that owned that Airbnb, like the whole joke is that he's publicly attacking them, so his audience are in on the joke. Like, yeah, it's fucking weird, man. It's a really weird time. I think the one that kind of like scuffs the edge of it for me is Tony Hinchcliffe, and I find that really weird to say because I love Kill Tony, a kind of more recent fan of Kill Tony, and I never really liked Tony Hinchcliffe's stand up when I watched it. Just thought it was kind of middle of the road. But yeah, like I really struggled watching the few minutes that had been put up, and then even the kind of extended version. I get what he was trying to do. I just don't think it was like well executed. And
yeah, again, I don't really have any opinion on the jokes, because I think there's always somebody out there that's gonna like your stuff and not like your stuff. I think there's horses for courses. Some people just like that sort of like shock jockey type style. Some people want to see a guy on there with a flipping puppet or whatever. Everyone's got their type of comedy they're into. It might not be for me, but some people find him funny.
yeah,
The main issue was mostly about the other comedian making it seem as if it was one thing to get him cancelled. That's the only thing that I don't like about it. I still think if you're in a crowd and you're hearing something you don't like, you're within your rights to walk away and leave. I even think if it was a crowd member that had recorded that and uploaded it and released it and said, "Oh, fuck Tony Hinchcliffe, I don't like him," that's okay too. As a fan, as a paying customer, you're allowed to. I just don't think I wouldn't say it's a fraternity, but whatever it is, you should be within your own little group of people doing this one thing. You shouldn't be the one to snitch on somebody. You shouldn't be the one to do it. If it's a crowd member, fair enough.
And that guy had a long, I mean, like a history of working with Tony Hinchcliffe as well. And his first interactions on Kill Tony are along that vein. Like, I think Tony Hinchcliffe does try and like push the barriers in terms of that to see what he can get away with.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've ever watched his back and forths with David Lucas.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Like, there's some really like fucking walking the line shit in there, but like it's part of the context of the whole show. Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with you. You know what I mean? I just think it's I just think that it was a bit of a shit joke.
Of course, I'm not really a fan of him either. I don't like him. I think he's super spammy. I like the show more than I do him as a person. I can do away with it, especially when the old live band was on it. Now it's sort of changed, it's a bit different, but the OG lineup of that crew was really good. Even Red Band fucking up the audio and the buttons. I mean, it was all really good. It all added to the show. Him himself as a host, I could do with. I know I don't really have any. I mean, whatever it is. But if that was me and I was the Asian dude and someone said something like that in front of me, I wouldn't post a clip up on the internet. I'd address it face up. Do you know what I mean? I'd slap the person. I'd get in their face. I'd be if that really touched me the way it should have touched him. You don't wait until to get a clip to cancel him. Like, what are you doing? Like, it's especially if you don't even know each other that well. That kind of humor, like, I don't know you to make that kind of joke in the first place in front of an audience, and then you're waiting to upload it onto a thing. It just doesn't. That didn't make any sense. That was the thing I didn't like.
And it caught on to the. If I was a comedian, that the people that responded to the racist qualities of those jokes aren't the people that you would want along your fucking comedy show anyway. Like, what
exactly
what kind of comedy?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's one of those unfortunate situations where you don't really want to defend anybody, but there's also just the crux of it is he tried to make it like it's bad enough as it like. Here's the thing: if the raw footage came out first, it's still bad. No one's excusing what he said. The raw footage is horrible. It doesn't make it better, but it's just that he tried to purposely make it seem as if it was one way when it was actually the other way. There's more context to the story. So if he just would have left it play out in full instead of clipping it to make it look one way, everyone would have been on his side. But he purposely tried to make it another way, which is what makes it deceitful, and I don't really have time for.
Yeah, it's weird, man. There was something else I was. Oh yeah, so one of the things we spoke about the last time was the Amber Heard and Johnny Depp thing.
Oh yeah.
I don't think the case had like. So I think the UK case went in favour of Amber Heard. But I'm not sure the American cases came to fruition yet.
The last thing I saw about that, I think I saw that they released the what's that thing that you do with lawyers in America where you sit down in front of a screen and they ask you questions and shit, they grill you.
A deposition.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw like a clip of that somewhere of her kind of ranting and whatever. From what I can see so far, it looks like everyone's finally woken up to the idea that she might be an absolute big fat liar. But already, again, that's another good example of like why I don't like cancel culture. it doesn't necessarily matter if she's a liar because the damage has already been done.
Yeah.
Now in people's heads permanently, it's going to be this idea that Johnny Depp is a woman abuser. The image of the flipping drugs on the table, him vomiting on himself, like those images don't go away. Do you know what I mean? Like she already set the tone of it. So regardless of what happens, she's still in fucking Aquaman, isn't she?
Oh, is she?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know.
I think she's the main. Isn't she like the girl that's next to the? She's next to.
I know that she was in it before, but I don't know. I didn't know if she'd been confirmed to do it again or not.
Which is why I have an issue with that respect, and also I have an issue with that as well because similar to the Tony Hinchcliffe and the Asian dude who opened it for him and their colleagues, you were in a relationship before. I know it went sour with Amber Heard and Johnny Depp, but you guys were in love at one point. Can't you just work it out without like demonizing and trying to bury the other person in public? Can't we just work it out? Like, I know it ended badly and I might have done something too cool, but let's just end it without having to like, destroy each other's career. You don't need to do that. Why are you doing it? What point of that's the thing I like about it. Like, it's unnecessary.
I find it weird. You're breaking up a little bit, man. I don't know.
Am I? Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, I find like, and this doesn't just stand in sort of modern society and the way it's moving. Like, I kind of, this is something that I've sort of felt like throughout my life. I think because I've had some things happen in my life that it would have been so easy to take the route of like I'm a victim. I feel like a victim. Like, I've never looked at that as being like a strong position to start any sort of like change from. Like if you view yourself as some oppressed or victimized person, you're like, I think you're creating a power dynamic in that. Does that make sense?
Of course.
You're creating of a person who's being stood on, and there's someone that's standing on you. Yeah, whereas I don't feel like that's a good path to recovery, like in any sort of way. I don't know if that translates onto sort of bigger scale societal problems. Like, obviously, I think that there are like bigger issues than being able to just go, "Oh, I'm not a victim," and that's going to fix it. I don't know. I don't know what you think about that.
No. I think, unfortunately, I agree with what you're saying. I just think, unfortunately, now there's just currency in being a victim. There's value in it, and there's a clear, I don't say path to success, but there is like there are rewards in it. Like, I think of the Chris Delia, going back to that one. If I'm not mistaken, one of the first girls, maybe the second one that came out and accused him, she got her account verified on Instagram. When it came, I don't know why. Maybe I think maybe Instagram have a policy where if you're involved in a public story, they automatically verify you so people can find you. But her account got verified on Instagram. Why? Why did it get verified? For what reason? Because she accused, and that's what I'm saying. So that's where you see the value in it, because she can take that verification check and then kind of use that as a jumping off. And if we assume she's attractive, she can use that verification check to then go get other opportunities. So she's turned a very dark moment into an opportunity to now, further her career. So somebody with some, let's imagine we believe her story. Now let's imagine somebody else with kind of, some unscrupulous motives comes around and sees that. They're gonna be like, you know what, this is a good come up. I can be a victim and then I can get something out of this. So that's when then the fake
career victims
come out. Exactly. And then fake accusations, all this sort of nonsense comes up, and it turns into the flipping victim Olympics. I hate it. I absolutely hate it. I think it stinks. And again, it takes away from actual victims, actual people who've suffered, because the whole counterculture thing works in a way, because if you can't get justice in the court systems, the only other way you can get justice is by reputational damage, like impacting the person, like, outside of the courts.
Yeah.
But people abuse it. That's the thing.
I've heard people use the phrase consequence culture, and I have like sat thinking, like, is that all that it is? Is it just the consequences of someone's like? But then there's it's still unjust, because there's times, like if you look at Kevin Spacey, right? At first I thought there's no way that this guy done any of that stuff, and then the more that came out, I started thinking, right, it's probably like a likelihood that he done some of this stuff. Just in the nature of how he responded to it. But at the same time, like, there's not been any lawful consequences for what happened. So all that shit that happened basically happened for nothing. Same with Chris Delia. Do you know what I mean? There's been actually no. There is. What were the consequences for then?
That's what I'm
If there's no
saying.
proof.
That's why I'm saying there needs to be some clear lines and kind of there needs to be some clear crimes that you do if you're a public figure that have consequences or that have kind of repercussions. If you do X, Y, and Z, you have a timeout from whatever it is. Doesn't matter if you're doing the next Sopranos movie or whatever it is, you can't go on press runs or anything for the next 6 months. That has to be a clear thing. But we have to be able to say in black and white, because you can't just be like, oh, because I made a move on a girl and it didn't go the way I wanted it to, my career's over. But then if I rape somebody, my career's also over. We have to acknowledge they're both different crimes.
Yeah.
They're very, very obviously not good at all. You shouldn't bloody be trying to sexually assault somebody you work with, or you shouldn't be trying to flipping, what's the thing called, violate somebody at all, zero. But they're different crimes. We have to have different punishments for different crimes. But unfortunately now they all get kind of swept to the same brush. And then unfortunately in that sweeping, innocent people also get caught up in it. And then the people that are actually guilty get away with murder, or like Kevin Spacey, like imagine he might be legitimately guilty, but because it's all kind of like, vague and whatever, he's still allowed to make fucking Christmas videos and shit. Do you know what I mean? It's a nonsense. It's a nonsense. It's a nonsense.
What was the thing you said about Louis CK? I laughed earlier because you said something about wanking in a bush or something.
Yeah, because that was the allegation. I think he was the first one to get cancelled in the comedy world, wasn't he? He was the first one. So the allegation was that he did it without the permission. No, he did it, and the women felt uncomfortable after the fact.
Yeah,
the story
they agreed to it.
Yeah, the story that Lucy K says is that, no, that's my thing. That's what I'm into sexually. That's what gets me off. And I asked them if I could do it in front of them, and they said, yeah. Now, the audience, the kind of social justice warriors, they say Lucy K is in a position of power. He's this permanent influence. If he asks a up-and-coming comedian, hey, can I do this in front of you? They're not going to not say no because it's Lucy K. So they're saying there's a power imbalance there. So he's still taking advantage of his position. I don't necessarily agree with it. I think if you're a grown adult and someone asks you, hey, can I wank off in front of you? You have your own agency. You can say, get fucked or whatever. You should be allowed to. And if it impacts your career, you should then be allowed also to scream for the rafters that this guy is blocking my ability to make money and to progress my career because I wouldn't let him wank in front of me. You should be able to do that. But let's not twist what happened. What actually happened was that, a group of consenting adults agreed to something a little bit weird, a little bit kinky, but you shouldn't have your career cancelled. It should be something that we should laugh about and take the piss out of you about it. But I shouldn't be able to. You shouldn't take away my Netflix deal because I like to have this weird thing happening behind closed doors. Come on, that makes sense.
Yeah, I didn't know what you meant by wanking in a bush. That's why I laughed.
It's really weird. Don't get me wrong. It's super. No, because I think the actual premise of it is he jacked off in front of the girls, and then to finish off, he wanked into a bush or something. No,
I forgot about.
Or am I?
It was a plant or something. Was it not like a plant pot?
Or am I confusing? Is that Harvey Weinstein? Wasn't that Harvey? That's what he did, no?
Or maybe. I don't know. I remember something about someone coming in a plant pot or something.
Someone come to the plant pot. It's like, okay, I guess, isn't it? Okay.
And that plant now grows 3 kids.
Mate, honestly.
Every year.
It's a super wrong on behavior. Like, if I had a daughter, am I gonna leave her alone with Louis CK and flipping whatever and, with Chris Delia? Probably not. But still, should they have their careers cancelled because they're into things that, like, even the Chris Delia thing is a good example because it's like he's clearly into really young girls. But if they're legal, then I know it's creepy because he's 40 something, but unfortunately, if they're above if they're the legal age, it's just you just have to let him get on with it. I don't know what you want. Like, if you don't like it, don't go to his show, but you can't cancel him because he likes, I don't know.
I know of this couple as well who, like, obviously in the UK, for anyone that's American watching this, in the UK, the age of consent's 16, or at least it was 16. I don't know what it is now.
Yeah, it's grim. It's grim. It's awful.
But I know this couple who, so the girl was 16 and she met this guy who was in his late 30s.
Jesus
Christ. They ended up happily married. Like, the guy's not here anymore, but they were happily married for like 20, 25 years, you know what I mean? Till he died. But but I mean that sounds like a crazy wild story, but at the same time, like there's everybody's different, man. You know what I mean? Like that, some people do mature, especially girls over guys. They mature earlier than guys, and a lot of girls who are around younger guys think that these young guys are immature and they want to go out with older guys, and then but it does become very strange.
I was about to say, like, even in like, or not, all people just like what they like. I can't. I've got younger brothers. I can't imagine they get on my nerves because they're young and dumb. I can't imagine being in a relationship with a girl that's like just even a couple years younger than me, let alone 10, 15. It's just like I get the allure. I understand because they're young and whatever it may be, but like let's just play it out in a relationship. Like that's my girlfriend. Like I can't imagine it. It blows my mind how people are into it. But some people do like to do it. Fair enough. But I also remember, like you said, I also remember being in school and being in like that must have been year 9 or something, year 9 or year 8 when you're like 14, 15, 14 around that age. You couldn't get a sniff of the girls that were in my year. They wouldn't even look at you because they were all dating guys that were like 17, 18, 19, 21. You had no chance. Those guys had mopeds. They had little cars. They might have had their own money because they worked a job. You had not a chance in hell of getting any of those girls to look at you when I was that age. So I can imagine why it happens,
I think that a lot of these young girls, as they become women, do start to unravel all of that, and it is quite weird. Because I think like maybe a guy who's like between the age of like 18 and fucking, I don't know, like what, 20, 25 or whatever, you're still not mature. If you haven't settled down and had a family, you're still not that mature, man. Exactly. And I think as women grow older and they start to unravel that, wait a minute, that was a bit fucking weird that guy who was like 2021 was going out with me when I was such a young girl. I do get it, man. I get where the whole thing comes from. I just think that it needs to be looked at on an individual basis. Like just having a straight up, this is what's going to happen to you if you mention the word fucking Me Too, or do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is the consequences.
Which is why it's probably better just to be upfront and open with your degenerate behavior and just be an open book. It's probably better to do that as opposed to like presenting yourself to be one way. I'm the family man. I'm the guy that doesn't curse. I'm the guy that That's when there's always going to be skeletons in your closet, especially if you're Chris Delia kind of thing. He was a guy without a vice. He didn't smoke, didn't drink. Like you deal in comedy, you're in nightclubs all the time. You're, going from city to city, state to state. There has to be some darkness there. It's just impossible not to be. So when you don't put it out front and center, it just festers in the background. And then when it does come out, it's a lot more darker than what people actually imagine. And now you're hearing, the sex addiction or this sort of stuff. It's like, okay, cool. But if you're just upfront with your thing, I think it's a bit more easier to kind of navigate around it, I feel.
I kind of felt like embarrassed for him, man. Like in that first video that he put out when he came back, like that he felt like he even had to talk about his sex addiction, man. Like,
so awful. It's awful.
Why am I hearing this, man? Like, it's just weird.
It's so awful. Yeah, what I'm saying. Like, I don't like. I honestly do not care, and I think most people don't care either. It's just the way it came out, the story. Because if you think about it, like make those girls 5 years older, and then make Chris Delia 20 years older. No one has no one cares anymore. No one has any bother. If it's like a young girl and she's managed to get herself a sugar daddy, everyone's like, you go girl, you go girl. But there's this weird, like if you just kind of go back 20 years and 5 years there, all of a sudden people have an issue. There's a weird time where people have an issue. Like I said, when I'm younger, I had loads of girls in my school who were 16 going out 20-year-olds. No one gave a shit. Then suddenly, if you're a 21-year-old guy, like, and I was to date if I was 25 and date a 16-year-old, everyone's gonna go crazy.
Yeah.
But then if I'm 35, 45 and I'm dating a 16-year-old, like an 18-year-old, no one cares. So it's a weird. You have to kind of catch it in a weird time. I don't know. It's just bizarre, which is why it's probably better just to like stick with your age group.
Yeah. It's weird, man. But I think Jordan Peterson says that women date like I don't think it's to do with age. I think it's to do with more like just other things where he talks about like women will date like a crossing up.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know why I thought that would apply to like age as well, but
It makes sense.
Unless you're like a 45-year-old woman going out with an 18-year-old guy.
Yeah,
that
which is
makes
unlikely
sense.
too. Which is unlikely too.
But it makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense, but it's also super unlikely.
Yeah.
But then it's also funny if you flip it the other way around. Always, it's like the guy's always the one that gets a stick. It's like, well, why am I getting a stick? Why aren't you questioning why she's into somebody like me? Why didn't she go out with somebody 21? Why she want to hang out like? Because I can't imagine what an 18-year-old and a 45-year-old will even talk about. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't know. Apart from the sexual stuff, which I understand, cool. Get your rocks off, but like, I don't know. Like when you're in a relationship with somebody, you just that turns into your best friend. So what are you talking about outside of the bedroom? Like, what is your conversation like? What's a crack? What's a banter? And it's like 18. Like, I was like,
I've had a friend who died like a couple of years ago, man, and like there's things that he said to me like in our relation, like our friendship, like since we were like young guys, like we knew each other from like primary school, and he said something to me when we were like fucking 18 or something, and he was like, you know, like when guys are in their prime, it's between like the age of 18 and 25, and then for women it's when they turn 40.
yeah,
and like that stupid stuff is like stuck in my head, and it's just like just the most ridiculous thing that you could have ever said. But he would just make up these fucking things that he would decide, and then they would like get embedded in my head. So after the age of 25, I would start thinking, am I like not in my prime anymore?
It happens a lot. I think I saw a documentary, but I think it happens a lot in China. There's a lot of that in China. There's a lot of ages, and it works. I find enough in China, it works both ways. It's not just a male and female thing. It's like if you're over a certain age and you're not married or anything, it's like it decreases your opportunities of getting married because other families don't want you because they feel like if you're 27 and you're a guy and you've got no wife or kids, it just looks weird. It just looks like, you know, you've got nothing going on. And same way for a girl in that way. So there's that weird pressure where they're kind of having to get together with people super early in age. But at least there's no confusion. You know, most people are like, you know, within a good age range, you're not dating some 14-year-old girl. It's like, you know, it's just two adults trying to make a family and trying to make the best of it. Do you know what I mean? That's what it is.
There's something else that Jordan Peterson was talking about, man, that made like it's just something I've never really thought about. Like I've never thought of myself as being like conservative or anything like that. In fact, like the polar opposite. I've always felt like quite liberal minded and especially like with regards to like religion and stuff. But he was talking about like the whole Me Too movement and how the way he was looking at it was that it was the left's response, like trying to undo all the like what's the like hookup culture. It was trying to like undo hookup culture because hookup culture was a like obviously a response to like marriage and being monogamous with like one partner.
Yeah.
And he was looking at it as if like that this is like the left now revealing that it doesn't work because it's such a massive contradiction. Is that you like the left basically saying that you should have sexual freedom in whatever way you see fit, but they're also now starting to criticize that chain of thought, actually acting more conservative than conservatives even are. I just thought it was a really fucking interesting point.
Yeah, because I think no, that's solid. That's a solid. But I definitely see where he's coming from. I think a good interpretation I saw of Me Too was the girls from Red Scare. Listen to that podcast called Red Scare. It's really good. No. It's these two girls from New York. They're kind of like arty-farty girls, and they're into like, you know, philosophy and all that sort of stuff. But once you get past all the like vocal fry, which is quite annoying to kind of, you know, listen to. Yeah. But once you get past the vocal fry, they really kind of, you know, astute in terms of how they interpret stuff that's going on in culture. And I remember they said something about Me Too, like it was like Me Too was basically a response from like the, let's say, you know, middle class women in kind of creative industries who kind of felt as if like they were powerless, like they weren't able to kind of, you know, have their voices heard within the writers' room, being directors, entrepreneurs, wherever it may be. So their reaction, their kind of way to kind of get their own back and kind of, you know, hit the guys where it hurts was to do the Me Too thing, because they say, you know, most women within working environments have had some element of, you know, a Me Too moment. So they all had stories to share. And once those guys got taken down, those same women then took their places. So it wasn't really a thing of like justice for the victims. It was more so, I want that job. So in order to get that job, I'm going to weaponize this story that I have on you about the Christmas party where you tried to kiss me in the toilets. And then that's going to allow me to then get your spot on the boardroom. So it's kind of that way. But there's also, I think that is a good reaction about hookup culture, because that does make sense, because there was that brief period where, like, you know, the whole Tinder thing and hooking up was a big deal. But then as we've kind of gone on with life, everyone sort of realized in the end, especially most of my friends that was super big in the kind of just like hooking up with whoever through Tinder, most of them have also found long-term relationships through those same apps. So the same apps that everyone was saying they were going to, you know, sexually liberate everybody, is just a it's just a kind of a speed way to kind of get to know people. But in the end, you're going to still want somebody to kind of have a monogamous relationship with long term. And that's just what it is. And we've seen the same with all these polyamory stuff and whatever. There's a certain segment of people who can live that lifestyle, but for the most part, it's hell. From what I've read and heard from people talking about it, it's legitimate hell to actually do it correctly. It's very difficult, but they make it seem as if like everyone can do it. No, it isn't. Not everyone can.
Even
not
when
everyone can do it.
When you watch, there's a documentary on Netflix about it that me and my girlfriend Katie watched, and it's like it actually sounds like a good idea. Like practically, it sounds like, oh, we've just got more people that we can rely on and be a community with. But when you watch the people individually and their like mannerisms and stuff, there's always one person that you can tell is like, I'm doing this because my partner wants this. Like, of course. Wild. But have you ever watched Tiger Belly?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, of course.
I don't know if how much you're aware of like his partner, but before she was with Bobby Lee, she was in a polyamorous relationship, and one of the things that she said was that it was just so complicated. Like once you got past the things that seem like they're so appealing about it, like the sexual side of it or whatever, it just became, this is three people's personalities that we need to manage, three people's jealousy, and
it's a lot.
Like, yeah,
it's a lot. Which is why I'm kind of what you call it when they say you should be like super honest in relationships and stuff. I've never really been a fan of that. I think I don't know. I think in general, maybe our parents' generation, they were able to maybe settle more because there weren't many options. Like, you know, my parents come from a small village in Africa. Like, there weren't many options to choose from. So after certain people have got hooked up with it, you're only left with what's you're left with. And then that you have to make a family with this person. Now, if that person then goes on to cheat or do something that you don't like, there's not necessarily an option to leave either, because, you know, you're older now and there's not many options out there. So you kind of sometimes stay just for the betterment of the family. And maybe you might get over it, maybe you might not. But there's the idea of like, let's just tough this out the way it is, which we don't really have nowadays in society. It's more so, if I don't like this, I kind of leave. But I also think there is something to be had for just, I wouldn't say keeping secrets, but like, if there's something if there's an itch you need to be scratched, I think it's probably better for the person to go away and do it wherever they need to do it without bringing it home, as opposed to like, I'm going to invite another person in our relationship and make this a polyamorous thing. Like, I don't see how that ever is going to work long term. Like, obviously both options are bad. I think continually flipping cheating on your partner is definitely going to erode the trust and definitely going to lead to way more problems down the line. But if I had to choose one of the two evils, I definitely choose like getting my rocks off in Thailand, as opposed to trying to convince my missus that we should have another girl come to a relationship, make it a thing. And then also there's arrogance as well, thinking of like, how arrogant am I to think that I'm going to bring this girl into a relationship and it's going to be my sexual desires are going to be like, you know, explored, when maybe she gets on with my missus more than she gets on with me. And then I'm the one left out in the lurch.
And also that like that's the way that it would swing, in terms of like that you would be the one that would be the beneficiary of that. Like maybe she wants another guy. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly. And then I'm fucked. So it's like, in general, I think people just do what's best for them and don't get wrapped up in all these trends that people are doing, because again, it's like when you go when I went traveling, especially when you go for the first time, you meet those people that you meet in traveling. You're like, you know what? It makes sense why you're here. It makes sense why you're in this community. It's a very particular person that doesn't mind living out of a backpack, you know, 6 months out of the year, working in cafes, doing translation jobs. It's not for everybody. Not everyone can do the kind of like, you know, flipping digital nomad lifestyle. But it's for some subsect. So it's like same with the polyamory thing. Leave it for some people, but most people shouldn't be advised to do so, because if you can just about keep a boyfriend, why are you then going to try and invite somebody else into your bedroom? It's like it's suicide, really, to me.
Yeah, it's wild, man. It holds. I don't know. Like, I think that as long as you're open in your relationship, and not in the sense, like, I get what you were saying about not being completely. That sounds wild, doesn't it? Not being completely true. Like, I think what maybe if I was to like have a stab at another way of saying that is like, there's a member of my family who I met like a few years ago, and they said something that really stuck with me, and it was that within your relationship, you need to remember that you're not just a partner. Like, you're also a brother. You're a brother-in-law. You're maybe a dad. Maybe you're a cousin or a friend to someone else. That you need to fulfill all these roles as well as fulfilling your role as like a husband or a partner or whatever. And I think that that's what's important. How to keep your relationship healthy is because within all of those little sub relationships that you'll say to all those people that you wouldn't necessarily say to your partner.
Oh yeah,
So it's not about like lying. It's about who you go to for emotional support for a particular thing.
No,
Does that make sense?
yeah, for sure, for sure. Like, it's just you have to be able to address each situation on its merits and kind of do it that way. But again, just do what's best for you in terms of that sort of stuff. I just don't know. I'm just not a fan of everyone just kind of like, banging on about these alternative lifestyles that are very niche and only sort of like, only really acceptable to a certain group of people. It just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And again, it kind of confuses people even further, because now it's not enough just to be in a relationship. You have to have these extra things involved. It's not enough just to be a mom. You have to be a businesswoman. It's like, just let people, like, everyone's got their, like, it's not bad what everyone's doing. It's just whatever fits you is what's best. And that's what it should be. But it shouldn't be a thing of like, you should be, you're not, like, you don't feel as if like you're adventurous enough because you don't like hanging from a flipping roof or something. It's like, I don't know. It's like, everyone's got their thing, but it's like you shouldn't be pushed into something because societally you feel as if like you're being pressured into it, and I'm not exciting, I'm boring, I should be doing this, doing that. It's like, nah, you really shouldn't, because I guarantee you it's not for you. If you're not into it now and you didn't get into it before, it probably isn't for you.
It's really narcissistic as well. Like, when I was younger, I was quite like that, like thinking that like music was a gateway into just being wild and like being able to have as many partners as you wanted. It's really like narcissistic and egotistic as well. Egotistical, is that right? Yeah. It's just it's something that I think is actually really dangerous if you try and adopt that like sensibility.
Of course, it's because you're getting into it for the wrong reasons. That's the
Yeah.
main thing. Of course, if it's a byproduct of it, no one's denying if you get some level of fame within a niche that you're gonna have some level of admirers. I'm sure even biologists have their groupies. It is what it is. But to get into it specifically for that reason is like you're shooting yourself in the foot. You're not gonna do great work. You're not gonna be memorable. You're not gonna contribute anything worthwhile to society. You're just gonna be a blip on a radar. But if you want to actually impact stuff, you have to get into it for the right reason. Be like, okay, cool. I've seen this guy, I've seen this girl, I've seen this band, I've seen them do this. Look how they change things. They played an instrumental part in my life. When I was in a dark moment, that album helped to. You want to replicate that. And if along the way, you end up flipping, being in a flipping building surrounded by 17 million virgins, cool, run free, do your thing. But getting into it for that reason is like insane.
It is sociopathic, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like really like grateful for the career that I've got now, just for the age that I am. You know what I mean? It seems like appropriate. Like, I get to play music full time and have and maintain a family life as well. I always used to look at like people like fucking Tom DeLonge was like my favourite musician growing up, like the singer of Blink-182. I always remember looking at him and thinking like, how do you not just go insane? Like, you're so super fucking famous. Like, why have you got a family? Why have you got a partner and all of these things? And you realise like you actually essentially need those things to keep you grounded, because otherwise you'd probably lose the career. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they say that. I think I was the same when I heard was it Metallica? I don't know, one of the bands. I don't know which one it is. Maybe all of them. But I heard stories about like, oh, supposedly they don't really talk to each other outside of tour. They don't talk to each other if they're not making music. It's just family, and that's it. And even when they perform in the arenas, they have their separate flipping dressing rooms. I'm like, what? I thought they were all, you know, in a dressing room together, strippers, you know, racking up lines. That's what I would imagine it to be. I want that to be so bad, but then when you start getting into your own sort of like creative practice and you start to do your own thing, and you're picking up the little £50 here, playing at a bar, and it's turning into like a hobby / occupation thing that you enjoy doing anyway, you start to realize like indulging in those things day in, day out isn't going to make your performances or the way you approach your art better. And in order to have longevity, you need to have that, be able to have that balance, that button to be like, you know what, it's home time now. I'm going home. I'm doing this. I'm clocking in. It's definitely a thing you realize with age, I think, which is why it's good to have that freak out thing when you're younger, as opposed to having it older, and probably why it's probably better even to maybe make it a bit later in life, because you have that base, you have that kind of, you know, that foundation. So so it's not that big of a deal if, like, you know, crazy hot girls are screaming at you because, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily tickle you the same way it would tickle you when you were 18 years old, which is completely understandable. Which is why it's super pathetic. Which is why it's super pathetic if you are older and you then do get lost in the sauce. You just look like a loser. You're like, you know, you're in your 40s and then, you know, you've got 3 kids at home and you're being pictured outside of a club somewhere, cheating on your missus with like some 19-year-old Russian model, 14. I might say, whoops. Yeah, you don't want that. You don't want a 14-year-old. You know what I mean? And you're exchanging saliva with some 19-year-old model outside of a bar. You just look ridiculous. You know what I mean? You've got kids at home, you've got a dog, like, what are you doing? But when you're younger, it's like, you know, it's a crazy guy.
You've got a dog is a brilliant line.
Yeah, you got a great. It's like Russell Brand. Imagine Russell Brand doing what he did when he was younger. Now you just people would be like, that's pathetic. But when he was younger and he was, you know, flipping chatting up the Good Morning, you know, TV host and stuff, it was fun. It was cool, interesting. But once you got a kid and you've got a business and you've got a mortgage, you pay rent, it's like, nah, you can't do that sort of stuff, man. You got to rein it in.
Yeah. Man, imagine Russell Brand then, now, like if that's like, he'd have been cancelled like fucking before Louis C.K. man.
I think it helps because he's funny and he's genuinely a charming, charismatic dude. But considering what people get cancelled for nowadays, like, it's impossible that Russell Brand character could exist. It's impossible. Yeah. No way.
Like when you were talking about like being a 40-year-old guy and seeing like younger girls and stuff, like Louis C.K. had a great bit about like getting older and realizing that, like, because he has daughters now, that the last thing he would want them to become is like the chick at the bar.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and it's like that's another thing that just stuck with me.
He's the best. Yeah, that's a good one. That is the best observation. Exactly.
That's the last thing you would want. Just to be some plastic looking. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, oh my God, what's your name?
Like, whether or not your daughter's good looking is like the last thing you would want to even want for them. Do you know what I mean? It's not even something that you would consider. Like, I hope my daughter's good looking. You know what I mean?
It's a mindset thing. You don't want your daughter to be that girl at the bar or, you know, at the front of the queue at the club trying to get the eye of somebody that's in there. Like, you don't want forget looks. You don't give a shit about that. It's just, you don't want that, because by and large it's impossible. Like, how do you kind of fix that person or make them sensible? It's impossible. Once you're that person, you're just that person. It's your personality. So you're just hoping to God that that's not who your daughter's going to be. Like, you just hope, do whatever you want to do. Just don't be that girl that's like, you know, hanging on the word of some like washed up rocker at a bar somewhere. It's like, oh yeah, what are you doing? But I guess it's one of those things.
Yeah. So what's in like the future for you? I know that you're saying that you do this sort of on the side type thing, but are there any plans like post-pandemic as to what you would like to do?
Plans post-pandemic. Keep doing this, of course. I was planning and thinking of doing some parties, like hosting them and putting them on, like being a promoter type thing. I did previously, but that's a real slog. And again, I'm still a little bit not on the fence, but I'm still a little bit skeptical as to how much this whole like boom within people going out is actually going to be real. I think a lot of people, I think people are basically over egging it a bit much. I think people's habits have drastically changed during lockdown. I think more so than people actually imagine. So I'm kind of waiting it out to see what July and August is like. And if the demand is still there, I'm probably going to do some events. So that's one thing. I want to do some sort of exhibition with some photographs I took ages ago. I've got a whole like compilation of photography stuff that I was doing that I kind of want to pursue that way. I'm getting back into the writing bits and bobs that I was doing before as well. I used to do a lot of like freelance writing bits and bobs. So I'm trying to think of an angle to start up a newsletter and kind of do the whole Substack route. So kind of doing that more so, and just kind of exploring more of my creativity outside of the DJing stuff that I was doing prior. So that will be most of the thing, because, you know, as most people have seen or they've kind of experienced with lockdown, it kind of made you realize the things that you kind of really enjoy doing, the things that you don't enjoy doing, and also put things into like perspective. Like, you know, it's all well and good having a 9 to 5 that pays the bills, but there has to be another reason to get up in the morning, and those other things give me a reason to get up in the morning. So if I'm able to kind of do them, especially working from home, it's a flipping blessing. I'm definitely going to try and pursue them as hard as I can going forward, because the last thing I want to do is, you know, we've been in lockdown, especially in the UK, 14 plus months. I don't want to just continue doing the same thing I was doing prior. I want to kind of level up a little bit. So hopefully that's basically it. Just keep doing what I'm doing, just keep going, and hopefully something will come of it.
I know you don't manage, like, or you don't consider the numbers and stuff on the podcast and stuff, but I think you will be coming out of all of this with something greater in that side to things than what you went in with. I think one of the things I really admire about what you do, or to me it appears anyway, is that you've reached the people that you wanted to reach. With seemingly without bothering anyone that knows you. You know what I mean? I always feel like when I'm sharing my podcast and stuff that I've got people that know me that are kind of like, what the fuck is he doing? So I really admire that you've managed to grasp that thing. You've reached like this to people that are like looking up the same shit as you are.
Because I think because I've always I've kind of never needed encouragement to do anything. I just do it because I like to do it. So I would imagine other people are the same as me. It's like they don't need to be like pushed and probed probed into like, look at this, check this out. They just kind of, if they want to see it, they'll stumble upon it. And I'd kind of always been my hope of like, okay, cool. If you're into this sort of stuff and you come across my channel, you'd be like, oh shit, he covers the stuff that I kind of like, and you just dive on deep. But you don't need to, you know, I don't need to be appearing in your ads like, you know what I mean? I don't need to be pushing my shit anywhere like that. I need to be doing my stuff quietly in the background. And if you like it and you come along, it's there, it's ready to go. Because I kind of had the idea in my head, like if I played music, I'd kind of want to be that kind of guy where it's like, I'm an amazing local act. Like everyone knows me in my area, that I fucking put on a good party. I put in a good performance, and I just do that year in, year out, and I'm happy just doing it at my level. And then if you happen to be somebody well known, somebody with connections, you happen to stumble on by at a pub I'm performing at some community center, I'm still doing what I'm doing. And you'd be like, oh, wow, you've got a whole catalog of amazing shit you've been doing. And it's going to give me more kind of credibility in your eyes and more evidence of that I can do the thing that you do. And if you put me on the big stage, I'm going to smash it. But I don't need to be constantly pushing myself out there. Like, I'm a good local act. And then once I get given the opportunity to go on the big stage, I'm going to show and prove, but I don't need to be like knocking on the door all the time. It's not necessary.
And most industries now, I think, are so like, I don't know, like chocolatey. I always use that word because it's such a, I don't know, like chocolate's such an exact taste. Do you know what I mean? Like if you buy some chocolate, you get some chocolate. Like, if getting a record deal now is getting a record deal, and it's just like you want to be credible and do something artistic with it.
Exactly.
Thanks very much for fucking doing this again, man.
Yeah, no worries, man. No problem. We just anytime, brother.
Sailed through this hour just chatting about cancel culture and stuff.
Anytime, man. Anytime.
Fucking like, I think I might have said the last time, but when we're doing these in person, I plan on going down south and doing a whole bunch of them.
Of course.
And I'd love to get you on, man.
Yeah, no problem. Hit me up.
But we'll let folk know your ats and your fucking WWs and stuff.
No WWs because I didn't pay my monthly subscription. So only the ats. Instagram, Agostinho Zinga, all one word. Twitter, same. YouTube, same, all one word, Agostinho Zinga. You can find me on there. Loads of videos, loads of content, loads of stuff to get in with. I've not really been updating my Instagram, but mostly stories here and there, but I don't really post on it too much. But still, if you want to, get a dive on deep into my personality, what I'm about and all that good stuff, definitely check it out. But yeah, that's it.